Hello, welcome to my video. Today, I am going to show you how to secure the app service, web app, with the private endpoint. We will block all the public access to web app and only allow the private access. Below is the architecture diagram that I will build in this demo. We will build a virtual network and then set up two subnets, VM subnet and PE subnet. We will create the app service, web app, with private endpoint in PE subnet, and then set up the VM in VM subnet. We will block all the public internet access to the web app and only allow VM to access web app through the private endpoint. Now let me create the web app first. Before I do the demo, please subscribe my channel. Let us log in to Azure portal. Before we create the web app, we have to create the app service plans first. Click on App Service Plans. Click on Create. First, create the resource group, called Demo Group. Type My App Service Plan as the name. Select Windows for the operating system. I live in Los Angeles, so I select West US as the region. For the pricing plan, according to Microsoft Document, Basic, Standard, Premium V2, Premium V3, Isolated V2, and Functions Premium are supported the private endpoint. Since the default is standard, I select the standard plan. Click on Review and Create button. It validates successfully. Finally, review everything and click on Create button. It will take some time. Let us come back when it's finished. Now, the deployment for App Service Plan is complete. Click on Go to Resource button to review it. You can see the demo group was created. Click on it. The app service plan was generated in this resource group. Now, let me create the web app uses this app service plan. Click on App Service. Select Create Web App. Select the resource group, Demo Group. Type MyApp1313 as the name. Turn off the unique default hostname. The app name is not available. Let us change the number to 8 instead 3. Select the .NET 8 as the runtime stack. Choose Windows as the operating system. Select West US in the region dropdown. Make sure select the app service plan that we created before. Select Next to Database. Keep everything as default. Select Next to Deployment. Keep everything as default. Next to Networking. Leave everything as default. Next to Monitor plus Secure. Disable the application insights. Review everything one more time, and then click on Create. It will take 1 or 2 minutes. Let us come back when it completes. The deployment is complete now. Let us click on the Go to Resource button. Click on Default Domain to browse the site. We can access this website from public internet now. Everybody can see it. If this site has the sensitive information, only allow certain users to view it. How can we do it? We can set up the private endpoint and block the public access. Let us review our architecture diagram again. First, we need to create the virtual network with two subnets, VM subnet and PE subnet. Let us jump back to Azure portal. Search and select Virtual Network. Click on Create. Select Demo Group as the resource group. Type MyVNet as the virtual network name. Choose West US as the region and click on Next. Leave everything as default for security tag. Next. Since this is a demo, I think 32 addresses is enough for our VNet. Remove exist default subnet. Create two subnets, VM subnet and PE subnet. Click on Add a subnet button. Type VM subnet as the name. Leave the IPv4 address range and starting address as default. Select 8 addresses for size dropdown. Uncheck Enable Private Subnet No default outbound access, checkbox. Leave everything as default and click on Add button. Do the same thing for Subnet. Now, we already have 2 subnets. Click on Next. Click on Review plus Create button. Finally, review one row time, and then click on Create button. It will take some time for the deployment. Let us come back when it completes. Now, the deployment was completed. Since we already deployed the virtual network and the subnets, we will create the private endpoint and configure the web app to block the public access. Search and select the private endpoint. Click on Create. Select Demo Group for the Resource Group dropdown. Type MyApp1318 Private Endpoint as the name. Leave everything as default and click on Next. Select Microsoft.web/sites for resource type dropdown. Select our web app MyApp1318 for the resource dropdown. Leave target subresource as default. Click on Next. Select the PE subnet in the subnet dropdown. Choose Dynamically Allocate IP address. It means it will pick an available IP from PE subnet range automatically. This IP will stay the same and will not change the future. Statically allocate IP address means you need to pick the IP by yourself. We will select the Dynamically Allocate IP address. Click on Next to DNS tag. Leave everything by default. Click on Next. Next again. It validated successfully. Review it. And click on Create. It will take few minutes to deploy. Let us come back when it completes. The deployment is already completed. Let us click on Go to Resource to view the private endpoint. Click on DNS configuration. It creates the network interface. It assigns the private IP address 10.0.0.12 to our web app. Now, let us go back to Home and click on App Service to configure our web app. Select MyApp1318. Click on Networking. There are 2 IPs. One is private IP 10.0.0.12. Other one is the public IP 40.112.243.109. Since we only allow users access the web app from our private network, we will block the public access. Click on Enabled with no access restrictions. Select Displayed Radio button for the public network access. Click on Save. Go back to previous page. We can see the public IP disappear. Only the private IP there. Let us go to Overview. Click on Default Domain to browse this website again. There is blue screen with 403 forbidden error because the public access were blocked. We cannot access this site from public internet now. I will deploy a virtual machine into VM Subnet. Since VM Subnet and PE Subnet are in the same virtual network, if everything's set up correctly, I should able to browse our website from our virtual machine. Let us search and select virtual machines. Click on Create. Select Demo Group as the resource group. Type MyVM for the virtual machine name. Select West US in the region dropdown. Leave Availability Options dropdown as default. Select Standard for security type. Choose Windows 11 Pro for the image. Make sure select x64 for VM architecture. Keep the VM size to standard B2S. Set up the username and password. Ensure select RDP for inbound port so we can log into VM from our local PC in remote desktop. Just check the licensing checkbox and click on Next. Make sure the Delete with VM checkbox is checked and select the standard SSD since it is cheaper. Click on Next to Networking tag. Select the VM subnet in the Subnet dropdown. Leave everything as default and Next. Select Manual Updates for patch orchestration options. Click on Next to Monitoring tag. Disable the boot diagnostics. Click on Next to Advanced tag. Leave everything as default. Click on Review and Create. It validates successfully. Review it one more time and click on Create. It will take few minutes to complete the deployment. Let us come back when it is complete. Now the deployment is done. Let us click Home hyperlink. Click on Virtual Machine. One VM was created under the resource group, Demo Group. Click on it. Select Connect. Download the RDP file. Open up the RDP file that you just downloaded. Select Connect. Enter the password to connect our virtual machine remotely. Since this is first login, it will take some time to initialize. The privacy dialog show up. Turn off everything. And click on Accept. Click on the browser edge. Since this is first time open, it requires for a few setup. Click on Start without your data. Confirm and continue. Continue without this data. Finally, confirm and start browsing. Close one of the tabs. Minimum virtual machine window. Go back to Azure portal and open up our web app, My App 1318. Do you still remember? If we open up this website from the public internet, it gets the blue screen with 403 forbidden error. Let us Control-C copy this URL. Go back to our VM and browse it from our VM Edge browser. The website opened successfully since our VM and web app are in the same virtual network. Let us look at it in more detail. In the search box, type command prompt and open it. Ping the domain. It points to the IP 10.0.0.12, which is our private endpoint IP address. This is also the inbound address for our web app. Type and select private DNS zones from the search box. You will see the private link, Azure Websites, Net. It was automatically created when we deployed the private endpoint. Click on it. Click on Record Sets. You will see the A record was created for our app. Go back to our VM. Type the lookup in the command window. The IP168.63.129.16 is the Microsoft Azure default DNS. There is an A record points to IP 10.0.0.12 for MyApp 1318 inside this DNS. Click on Virtual Network Links. You will see this private DNS zones, links to our virtual network MyVNet. What happens if we delete this virtual network link? Let us delete it. It will take some time. Finally finish. Go back to our VM. Refresh the browser. You will see blue screen with the 403 forbidden error. Try to ping the site again in the command window. It points to the public IP 40.112.243.109. Let's look up again. The default DNS IP is still the same. Let us add the virtual network link back. Click on Add button. Type anything you want for the link name. Select MyVNet from the drop-down. Click on Create. It will take some time. Let us come back when it finishes. It is done now. Go back to our VM and refresh the page. It shows up again. If you ping it again, you will see it points back to the internal IP 10.0.0.12. Try and slip up again. It shows the internal IP too. This is how we can protect our web app access from public internet with the private endpoint. That's all for today. Let us close the VM and delete all the resources that we create before. Go back to the demo group and select all resources. Click on Delete. Check the checkbox to force delete the VM. Enter Delete to confirm deletion. Finally, click on Delete button. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching. See you in next video.